I still remember the smell of fresh paint in the nursery, soft lavender, the color she chose because she said it felt calm and safe. That room used to be my favorite part of the house. Now I can't even look at the door. My name is Ryan. I'm 32, living just outside of Seattle. I met Claire 4 years ago at a photography exhibit downtown. She was 28, sharp-witted, beautiful, with this quiet intensity in her eyes like she was always a few steps ahead in a conversation. I was hooked from the start. We dated for almost 2 years before getting married. Everything felt right. We laughed easily, fought rarely, and shared dreams like two kids playing make-believe. Claire wanted to be a mother more than anything. I still remember her crying during a diaper commercial once. "Hormones," she laughed, but her eyes said something deeper. She was ready. When we found out she was pregnant, Claire practically glowed. She'd walk around the house humming lullabies she made up on the spot. We bought books, signed up for birthing classes, even picked out names: Emma if it was a girl, Caleb if it was a boy. I didn't think life could get any better. But then, it did. At her 16-week scan, we saw the baby on screen, squirming, healthy. Everything was perfect. We started painting the nursery that weekend. I remember Claire standing on a stepladder, giggling as she accidentally dabbed paint on her nose. But that happiness didn't last. A few weeks later, I came home from work, and Claire was curled up on the bathroom floor, crying, blood on her hands. I rushed her to the ER. The words from the doctor blurred together. Complications, fetal demise, no heartbeat. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the world. We went home the next day with an empty womb and hearts so full of pain they barely beat. For a while, we were just silent. She cried in the shower. I cried in the garage, and neither of us talked about it. Until one night, 2 weeks later, she broke the silence. "I can't believe you did this to me." Her voice was so cold, it didn't even sound like Claire. I blinked. "What are you talking about?" She stared at me, red-eyed, trembling. "You stressed me out. You were always on my case about appointments, eating right, walking enough, not walking too much. You made me anxious every damn day. That's why I lost the baby." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, stunned. "Do you know what it's like?" she whispered. "To feel your body fail, and then to know the person you trusted the most was part of the reason?" That night, I slept on the couch. The first time in our marriage. But not the last. Over the following weeks, Claire became distant, cold, detached. She barely looked at me. Some nights, she wouldn't even come home. Said she was driving to clear her head. I tried to be patient. I told myself grief does strange things, but something felt off. She stopped mentioning the baby altogether. No more lullabies, no more nursery. She even told me to get rid of that stupid crib one morning without looking up from her coffee. I held on. I cooked, cleaned, tried to talk, but she barely responded. I thought maybe therapy would help, but she laughed in my face. "You want to fix me now, Ryan? Like this is just a project for you?" That was the moment I realized she wasn't just grieving, she was angry, and I was her target. But I never could have guessed the real reason why. It wasn't until I saw the message. A random Tuesday. I'd been working from home and Claire left her phone on the counter. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. The screen lit up with a text. "I miss you. I wish it was yours." My blood turned to ice. After that night, everything changed. Emma barely spoke to me. The warmth in her voice had been replaced with icy silence. I tried talking to her, explaining again and again that I had done nothing wrong, but she looked through me like I was a stranger. We slept in the same bed, but the space between us felt like an ocean. I'd reach out in the night, just to feel her there. Sometimes she'd flinch, other times she'd just get up and leave. It crushed me. I'd come home from work with flowers, her favorite snacks, or just hoping for a small smile. But every gesture was met with cold indifference. One time, she left the roses I brought her on the kitchen counter until they wilted and died. The message was clear. She blamed me. and she wasn't ready to forgive. Her parents stopped calling. Her sister, who used to send me funny memes and tag me in random Facebook posts, unfriended me altogether. I was being erased. The isolation started eating me alive. I'd lie awake wondering what I could have done differently, what sign I missed, what step I could have taken to protect her, to protect us. But I didn't give up. I asked her to go to therapy. She refused. I suggested we go together. She laughed bitterly and said, "Therapy won't bring my baby back." So I started going alone. I needed to make sense of the pain. My therapist, Linda, was a kind woman in her 50s. Calm voice, soft eyes. She told me something in our third session that stuck with me. Sometimes we look for logic in places driven by emotion. You might never find the answer you're looking for, but that doesn't mean the pain isn't real. Still, I couldn't let it go. One evening, about a month later, I came home early from work. I wanted to surprise Emma, maybe cook dinner together like we used to, but the house was empty. Not just quiet, empty. Her clothes were gone. Her toiletries missing from the bathroom. Her phone charger, the books on her nightstand, even the photo of us from our honeymoon that used to sit on her dresser. All gone. No note, no message, nothing. I called her, straight to voicemail. I texted. No response. I stood there in our bedroom, holding one of her old sweaters she'd left behind. It still smelled like her, that soft lavender scent she always wore. And I broke down. I thought I'd already hit rock bottom. But that moment? That was a new depth of loneliness I never knew existed. Days turned into weeks, no word from her. I reported her missing, even though I wasn't sure I should. The police didn't take it too seriously. She was an adult, and according to them, she probably just needed space. Eventually, I got a call. Not from her, but from her best friend, Rachel. We'd barely talked since the miscarriage. Rachel always seemed distant with me afterward, but now her voice was shaking. "I need to tell you something," she said, "but I don't know how." My heart dropped. "She's okay," Rachel added quickly. "But you need to know. Emma wasn't honest with you. About a lot of things." I sat down, gripping the phone like it might explode. Rachel took a deep breath. "She was never really sure the baby was yours." For weeks, Emily barely spoke to me. The once warm and loving woman I knew had become a stranger overnight. Every conversation was laced with coldness, her eyes dull and distant. I tried to be there for her, to understand, to grieve together. But every time I reached out, she pulled away. The most painful part wasn't just her silence, it was the blame in her eyes. Like I had done this, like I was responsible for her pain. I couldn't sleep. I'd stare at the ceiling every night, haunted by guilt I didn't understand. Was it something I did? Something I didn't do? I started to question every moment leading up to the miscarriage. Did I miss a doctor's appointment? Did I forget to support her properly? The weight of her unspoken accusations crushed me. One night, I came home late from work and found her crying in the kitchen. She didn't hear me at first. She was curled up on the floor, sobbing into her hands. I knelt beside her, trying to comfort her. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I still didn't know what for. She looked up at me with red, puffy eyes. "You should be," she said. "You ruined everything." Those words broke me. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the balcony alone, watching the city lights flicker like stars that had forgotten how to shine. The words kept echoing in my head. You ruined everything. Days turned into weeks, and I began noticing strange things. She was on her phone constantly, more than usual. She'd leave the room to take calls in a hushed voice. Her text messages were always turned face down. I didn't want to believe the worst. I told myself she was just grieving in her own way, that she needed space, that maybe therapy could help us reconnect. But my gut told me something was wrong. One day, while she was in the shower, I saw her phone light up on the bed. A message preview popped up. "We need to talk. He's getting suspicious." My chest tightened. I know I shouldn't have, but I unlocked her phone. My hands were shaking. What I found made my blood run cold. There were messages from a man named Tyler, dozens of them. Flirty, intimate, romantic. Conversations that dated back months, even before she had gotten pregnant. And then I saw it. A message from her, just days after the miscarriage. He still thinks it was his. I can't keep this up much longer. I dropped the phone. My knees buckled. I couldn't breathe. The baby wasn't mine. All the nights I spent crying, feeling like a failure, hating myself for something I didn't do. She had let me. She had wanted me to. She had lied. Lied about the baby. Lied about me being the father. Lied about everything. But what hurt most was that she blamed me for losing it. She chose to make me the villain. When she came out of the shower, she saw the phone on the bed, the messages still open. For the first time in weeks, she looked at me with something other than coldness. This time, it was fear. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth was dry. My chest felt like it was caving in. "I was going to tell you," she continued, wrapping the towel tighter around her. "I just didn't know how." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because everything felt so insane, so unreal. "You were going to tell me?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Before or after you made me believe I killed my child?" She flinched. "I didn't know it would happen," she whispered. "The miscarriage wasn't planned. I was scared." "Scared of what?" I snapped. "Scared I'd leave you? You already left me, Emily. The moment you lied. The moment you looked me in the eyes and made me think I was to blame." She sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. "It was just one mistake. One night. It didn't mean anything with him." "But it meant everything to me," I said. "You didn't just cheat on me. You broke me. You let me carry your guilt like it was mine." I returned home from my mother's house late that evening, my mind still heavy with her words. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The light in our bedroom was on, and when I walked in, I saw Olivia sitting at the edge of the bed, her face pale, hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "I need to tell you something," she said, voice trembling. I sat beside her, heart pounding in my chest. For a brief moment I thought, hoped she might apologize, that she'd say she was wrong to blame me, that we could heal together. But what came out of her mouth next shattered everything I thought I knew. "There was no miscarriage," she whispered. My breath caught. "What do you mean?" She looked down, avoiding my eyes. I had an abortion." Everything around me froze. My ears rang as if someone had struck a bell inside my head. "You told me. You said it just happened. You let me believe it was my fault. That stress, or the arguments." "I know," she whispered. "I know what I did. And I'm sorry. I was scared." "Scared of what?" Her eyes finally met mine. "Scared that you'd leave me if you knew the truth. Scared of what you'd think when you found out the baby might not be yours." There it was. The truth. Ugly, raw, unforgivable. "Whose was it?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. The name had haunted me for weeks. "Mark," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "It was just once, when we were going through a rough patch. I didn't plan for it to happen. I thought it was just a mistake, something I could forget. But then I got pregnant and I couldn't lie anymore. I didn't know what to do." "You could have told me," I said. "You could have given me the truth instead of this story. You let me carry the guilt. I grieved a child that never was mine." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't know how to face you. I thought if I blamed you, maybe it would make things easier. For me. For us. But it only made everything worse." I stood up, unable to sit still. The room suddenly felt suffocating. "You destroyed us," I said quietly. "Not because of the cheating, not even because of the abortion, but because of the lies, the manipulation." "I still love you," she said desperately. "I made a mistake, but I love you." I shook my head. "You loved control. You loved the version of me who you thought would never leave, no matter what you did. I left that night. I didn't take anything with me, just my phone, wallet, and the echo of a life that would never be the same. I wandered the streets until dawn, the weight of betrayal heavier than anything I'd ever carried. For weeks after, she tried calling, texting, even showed up at my workplace once, begging for a second chance. But the trust was gone. The foundation we built our relationship on was nothing more than a mirage. I started connecting dots I had been too blind to see before. The late nights when she said she was working late, but came home with no signs of work. The mysterious phone calls she would take in the hallway, whispering just low enough for me not to hear. The weekend trips to visit her mother, but her mother would call asking how Emily was doing. I was a fool, trying to hold our lives together while she was unraveling it behind my back. One evening, I made a decision I never thought I would make. I followed her. She said she was going to meet a friend for dinner. I stayed a few blocks behind as she walked, hands stuffed in her coat pockets, shoulders tight. She turned a corner and entered a small, dimly lit cafe. I stood across the street, heart hammering in my chest, waiting. 10 minutes passed. Then I saw him. Tall, athletic, early 30s, a man I didn't recognize. They hugged. Not a casual friend hug, something more intimate, like old lovers reuniting. I felt sick. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but her body language told me everything. She was laughing, relaxed, eyes glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. I snapped a photo with my phone, not out of revenge, but because I needed proof, for myself, if nothing else, that I wasn't crazy. The next morning, I sat Emily down and showed her the picture. Her face drained of all color. She didn't deny it. She just stared at the screen like it was a ghost from her past. Finally, she said, "You weren't supposed to know." I asked her who he was. She whispered his name. Daniel. An ex from college. Someone she had reconnected with while I was working extra shifts to save for our baby. Then, without me asking, she added, "It's not your baby." My world didn't just shatter. It vaporized. The grief I had been carrying wasn't even mine to carry. The child I had mourned, dreamed about, fought for, wasn't mine. And she knew. All along she knew. I confronted her the next evening. We sat across from each other in the same kitchen where we'd once laughed over burnt pancakes and late-night ice cream. But this time, the air was thick with tension and something else, grief, anger, fear. I told her everything I'd learned, about the doctor's records, the dates, the phone calls. I didn't accuse her. I just asked her to tell me the truth. And for the first time in months, she cried. Not the silent tears of guilt or frustration I'd seen before, but full-body sobs. She admitted it. She had been pregnant, but the child wasn't mine. She had an affair, a brief one, with a coworker during a rough patch in our relationship, and when she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. She told me it was mine because, in her words, you were the safer option. But the guilt was overwhelming. The lie began to suffocate her, and when the miscarriage happened, she said it felt like punishment. "I blamed you," she whispered, "because I couldn't face myself." I sat there, hollowed out. Every part of me wanted to scream, to break something, to storm out and never look back. But I didn't. I just sat in silence, because the pain had carved me too deep for rage. I moved out that weekend. It took me a long time to rebuild, mentally, emotionally. I started therapy, took up running again, threw myself into work. The nights were the hardest. The quiet reminded me of what I lost, not just the baby, but the version of love I thought I had. It's been almost a year now. I don't hate her. I honestly don't know what I feel anymore. But I know this. Sometimes the people closest to us carry secrets sharp enough to cut us wide open. And the worst pain isn't always betrayal. It's discovering that the life you were building was never really yours to begin with.